Alright everyone, so I've been seeing a ton of comments lately about that wild $100 XRP prediction for end of year. And honestly, a lot of you are asking for my take on this whole thing. Now, here's the deal. By the time we wrap up this video, you might absolutely love what I have to say, or you might completely hate me for it. I really have no clue. But you know what? I'm going to give it to you straight anyway. No sugarcoating, just my 100% honest reaction to all this madness. Here's what we really need to talk about though. It's not just about price predictions themselves. Those can actually be pretty useful. The real problem? It's those crazy, unrealistic timeframes that get slapped onto them. That's where things get messy, folks. So, let me kick things off with this video clip that's been making rounds. Everyone's been saying, hey, if Jake nailed this prediction, what else is he going to get right? We're talking about Jake Claver here, and his call about the Bank of Japan actually raising interest rates instead of cutting them. We're talking about a bump up to 75 basis points. And guess what? The guy was spot on. CNBC confirmed it. Check this out. Bank of Japan poised to raise rates to a 30-year high despite economic weakness. Pretty wild stuff, right? Now, a lot of people are freaking out about what this means for the whole economy. And honestly, I get why they're concerned. We'll dive into that in just a sec. But first, let me show you exactly what Jake said. This was yesterday on the 16th. Well, technically, he said this on the 15th during his live stream.
Anyway, so if they raise 25 basis points, I think it'll be more of a trickle. It's not going to be a flood. If they move 50 or 75 basis points, it's gangbusters. Like the reverse carry trade unwinds right then. I think they could push it. I think they could push it over the weekend. So might be a happy Monday. 21st might be a happy Monday.
So yeah, Jake's been talking about this for a while now. Pretty impressive call, not gonna lie. But here's where things get interesting. And a little scary. Even though we're seeing some serious economic weakness right now, the Bank of Japan is still pushing forward with these rate hikes. Now, why is everyone so worried? Well, a lot of folks think this could trigger an absolutely massive market wipeout. I actually got asked about this in our Discord, and here's what I told them. This could hit the markets hard. Like, we're talking about potentially amplifying sell pressure in ways we haven't seen in a while. Why? It all comes down to something called the carry trade and reverse trade. Let me break this down for you in simple terms. Right now, tons of people are borrowing Japanese yen at super low rates and using that money to buy up US bonds and stocks. It's been like free money for years. But here's the kicker. When Japan starts hiking those interest rates, suddenly that cheap money isn't so cheap anymore. Liquidity gets squeezed tight, and that's when things can get ugly fast. We're not just talking about Japan's market taking a hit. This could absolutely crush US markets too. And when that happens, yeah, crypto's definitely going down with the ship. But wait, there's more. Here's another piece of the puzzle that makes this even more concerning. Japan happens to be the largest holder of US debt. We're talking treasuries here. We've actually covered this before, and it's pretty similar to how Tether is one of the biggest treasury holders too. The domino effect from this stuff is real. So what happens when rates go up? Simple. It forces people to start dumping bonds left and right. Bond prices crash, yields shoot through the roof, and suddenly it costs way more for regular Americans and companies to borrow money. And here's where it gets really messy. When yields spike like that, it puts insane pressure on the stock market. Everything starts breaking down. You get this nasty contagion effect spreading everywhere, and before you know it, the entire market and financial system could be looking at a complete collapse. That's exactly what Jake's getting at here. He's basically saying this could be the domino that knocks everything else down. A total market wipeout. And here's where some people take this theory to the next level. They're saying if the entire system crashes, not just crypto, but everything, then XRP could somehow get integrated as a liquidity backstop to save the day. Now, hold up. I'm going to be real with you here. I don't think that's going to happen. Plus, when we look at the actual Bank of Japan rate situation, it seems like the market already saw this coming. Check out what CryptoGoose is showing us. On Polymarket, people were betting 96.6% chance of a 25 basis point increase in December. And boom, that's exactly what we got. Like Jake mentioned, this is going to be a gradual thing. If they had done anything more aggressive than 25 basis points, yeah, we probably would have seen markets get absolutely demolished across the board. A complete systemic collapse? I'm not so sure about that. But even if it did happen, I still don't buy into this idea that XRP is just going to get plugged in as some magical liquidity backstop. Now, I've been seeing this theory pop up all over my timeline since the beginning of the month. Here's what people like Unknown DLT and Jake Claver are saying. $100 XRP by end of year. Here's how it happens. The Japanese carry trade collapses, forces Japan to adopt blockchain tech, and boom, XRP becomes their go-to liquid asset as a backstop. They're even bringing up that old claim about the CEO of SBI saying all Japanese banks would be using XRP by 2025. Alright, time for some tough love here. That story? It's been debunked multiple times. I keep seeing people share that article, but guys, it wasn't from a reliable source. And look, I could easily jump on here and hype you all up saying, oh yeah, SBI's CEO said every Japanese bank will use XRP by 2025. The carry trade's collapsing. Japan's going to be forced to use XRP. But I'm not going to feed you nonsense. I'm going to give it to you straight. I don't believe we're hitting 100 XRP by the end of this year. And that whole all Japanese banks using XRP by 2025 thing, totally debunked. That article's been floating around since like 2021, maybe even earlier. People have been talking about it for over 4 years now. Here's a fun fact though, Japanese bank stocks are actually at all-time highs right now. So this carry trade situation, it could definitely pop at any moment. But here's what I think is really happening. This is just going to be the hot narrative until the next shiny theory shows up. Remember when everyone was freaking out about Saudi Arabia supposedly ending the petrodollar deal? Oh no, the US dollar's going to collapse. America will have to use blockchain tech. Sound familiar? It's basically the same playbook, just with Japan instead of Saudi Arabia. Now, don't get me wrong, there are some genuinely exciting things happening with XRP in Japan. Like, check this out. Doppler Finance just announced they're partnering with SBI Ripple Asia. This is actually huge. This collaboration is diving into XRP-based yield infrastructure and real-world asset tokenization right on the XRP ledger. We're talking about advancing institutional-grade finance here. This is the kind of news I absolutely love seeing because it's real, it's concrete, and it's all about RWAs, real-world assets. And SBI? They've always been massive supporters of both XRP and Ripple. This is the kind of legitimate development that actually moves the needle. There are honestly so many major partnerships happening between SBI and Ripple, and I absolutely love seeing it. This is the real stuff that gets me excited. But here's where I need to get serious with you all for a minute. These crazy timeframe price predictions, they're actually harmful to our space. Like, genuinely damaging. Why? Because they get people's hopes up sky high, and when reality hits and those predictions don't pan out, what happens? People panic sell. It's a vicious cycle. People kept flooding my YouTube comments asking me to address this wild prediction floating around. We're talking 100 to 700 plus XRP by the end of the month. So let me address this in the simplest way possible. It's not happening. Now, before you click away thinking I'm just being negative, hear me out. I absolutely do believe XRP can hit much higher price targets long term. I've said this countless times. The issue isn't the price target itself. It's these insane timeframes people keep slapping on them. Do I think XRP can hit $100? Yes, absolutely. I've talked extensively about how everything's evolving, how this new financial system is becoming reality. I still believe we need to see a collapse of the old system to fully usher in the new one. That's been my consistent message for years. Here's the thing. We can't truly move forward if we're still dragging the old system along with the new, but we're converging at lightning speed. Everything's moving on chain. We're seeing cracks in the traditional system everywhere. And yes, something massive is going to happen eventually. Will it be the Bank of Japan situation? Saudi Arabia with the petrodollar? Something completely different? Honestly, We have no clue. We could speculate all day long. What I do know is this: the new system is already here in many ways. Something big is definitely coming, and I think digital asset prices are going to increase significantly when it happens. But the time frame? That's the million-dollar question. And when we're talking about less than 2 weeks for 100 XRP, come on guys, we don't need to be rocket scientists here. Let me break down when 100 XRP could actually happen. We're talking about scenarios where hundreds of trillions start moving on-chain. XRP captures a significant chunk of that volume, institutional adoption explodes, ETFs lock up massive amounts of supply, and XRP becomes the bridge for trillions in daily value movement. 24/7, 365 days a year. But here's the key word most people ignore in that whole breakdown. If. All these predictions are pure speculation paired with absolutely outrageous timeframes. Now, let's talk about what we actually know based on real, trackable data. We've got roughly 686 million XRP locked up in ETFs right now. That's about 0.68% of the total supply. And this happened in just over a month. Institutional money is pouring in. We're looking at over 30 straight days of inflows. Real-world assets and stablecoin value on the XRP ledger keeps climbing month after month. We're seeing legitimate adoption of RWAs and stablecoins happening in real time. The XRP ledger itself keeps getting better. Constant improvements and upgrades to handle institutional DeFi and increased tokenization. Ripple's expanding their whole infrastructure stack too, showing increased XRP utilization from their recent acquisitions like Hidden Road, Palisade, and Rail. Crypto regulations are accelerating, which is huge for compliant companies and utility-focused assets. This benefits both Ripple and XRP massively. And get this, the FDIC, OCC, and the Fed are all clearing the path for increased banking and institutional adoption heading into 2026 and beyond. These are just hard facts about Ripple, XRP, and the broader crypto market that actually support real adoption, which naturally leads to price appreciation over time. But here's what I think is most important for anyone holding XRP right now. Focus on the massive positive shift we've seen in the environment around XRP. The changes over just the last 12 months have been absolutely incredible. Give it 3 to 5 years, and I honestly don't think we'll even be sitting here talking about these ridiculous price predictions anymore. This whole space is maturing in a way where XRP is actually becoming a legitimate asset class. The future for XRP? It's extremely bright. Is it $100 bright? Only time will tell. But here's what I'm certain about. We're not hitting $100 by end of year, or even next year. Let's be realistic here. How about we focus on getting to $3.84 first, then $5, and hopefully $10 after that? Yeah, I really don't think $100 per XRP happens next year either. But when we put these absolutely ridiculous time constraints on things, I feel like we're doing way more harm than good. And we've been through this cycle before, guys. There have been so many people who've come and gone, all pushing their own price predictions. Now, I'm not saying Jake is being predatory or anything like that, but there's definitely some legitimate concern about certain individuals who push these wild price targets. I remember when the first major price target started making rounds. It was actually from Hill Capital. I'll break this down for you in a sec, but their prediction wasn't quite as crazy as Jake's current one. They were calling for $10,000 to $35,000 per XRP. This was supposed to happen after regulations got sorted out and all that. They first posted this back in 2021, but man, from 2019 all the way through 2021, there were just insane narratives floating around about XRP. Most of them never happened. But here's the thing, this same prediction keeps getting reposted almost every single year for engagement farming. They posted it again in 2024, and then again in June 2025. It's like clockwork. And here's what really bugs me. Most of these accounts are promoting something. They're trying to sell you some ridiculous product or service. It just feels so forced, you know? They're farming engagement to grow their audience just to funnel people into stuff they don't actually need. Speaking of Hill Capital, the biggest red flag was this confidential committee thing they announced back in 2023. Even Moonlambo called them out on this mess. He basically said, if anyone on the XRP confidential committee with Hill Capital realized what they were getting involved with, now would be a good time to exit and publicly disavow the group. Get this, on top of the $100 million they were supposedly raising, it looks like committee members were being tasked with suckering XRP holders into signing some legally binding agreement. And they were going to get paid to recruit people. It says so right in their materials. I honestly forgot all the details about what this committee was supposed to do because I didn't pay much attention to it. But I remember Hill Capital was always pushing this buyback theory. I think their whole pitch was that this committee was going to fight for some massive buyback worth millions and millions of dollars. And if you sent your XRP to this confidential committee and signed their agreement, you'd supposedly get a percentage back. It's absolutely insane that this type of stuff has been pushed on the XRP community for years now. And guess what? It's typically the same people making these outrageous price prediction claims over and over again. Now again, I'm not putting Jake in that same category, but when I see price predictions like $100 XRP within 10 days, I can't help but feel like it's very forced. It screams engagement farming to me. And listen, I have zero hate or disrespect towards Jake. I'm just looking at this whole thing logically and giving you my honest opinion. And that's the key word here, my opinion. You guys might have a completely different take, and that's totally fine. If you genuinely think 100 XRP is happening by end of month, hey, more power to you. Honestly, I hope it happens. Why? Because I'm holding a massive bag of XRP, and if it hits $100, we're all set for life. I wouldn't have to worry about a single thing anymore. So yeah, I'm definitely hoping for the best here. But we also need to come back down to earth and think realistically. This whole carry trade collapse, systemic breakdown narrative. Guys, we've been talking about this for over 5 years now. The financial collapse discussion has been going on forever. And like I said earlier, I absolutely think we'll get there eventually. Anyone who steps back and honestly looks at our economy and the financial environment can see that something's got to give. The old system is breaking. It's completely outdated. We're watching the biggest players slowly move on chain. And it feels super coordinated, especially heading into 2025. You've got major banks, the DTCC, SWIFT, everyone's lining up. It really does feel like we're saying goodbye to the old financial system, slowly but surely. And honestly, 2026 could be absolutely massive for crypto. I do think we could see XRP hitting some pretty impressive price targets during that timeframe. Do I think XRP hits $100 in 2026? Probably not. But by around 2030, within that 4-year window, it definitely has a solid chance of reaching those higher valuations, especially when you factor in more tokenized assets flooding the chains, ETFs potentially eating up massive chunks of supply, and demand continuing to surge. If all that plays out, then yeah, 100 XRP could definitely happen way sooner than I'm predicting. But I'm being intentionally conservative with my timeline here. Alright guys, that's a wrap. I hope you found this breakdown helpful. If you did, definitely smash that like button, hit subscribe, and turn those notifications on so you don't miss any of our content.